Hello, third grade. Obviously, I am not here today. I had to be out of the building. So in today's class, I've recorded this little bit of a video that's going to be the beginning of a longer video. We have visiting our class today on the video, Mrs. Burke, who is our string and orchestra director. She's going to demonstrate to a class that's in front of her the instruments of the orchestra that you will be able to play next year. So she's going to go through the options that you will be able to play next year. After her, we'll have Mr. Hans. Mr. Hans, as you know, teaches right next door here, and he's going to go through all the band instruments, most of the band instruments that will be an option for you to play next year. Oddly enough, Mrs. Burke and Mr. Hans couldn't be in the school today either because they're on a field trip or a performance trip with the high school groups. Now, in this particular video, it's a video of a class that we had the other day. You're going to hear students coming and going. They have, both of those teachers have their students with them. You're going to hear that door opening and closing, and so forth. So it's an actual class. And I need for you to participate in everything that we do, whether it's a singing, whether it's a standing up and moving. You're going to be part of this class that's in the video. Okay, so to begin with, we're going to hear from Mrs. Burke. We'll hear of the string instruments. I need for you to think of a string instrument, an orchestral string instrument. Without making a sound, think of an instrument that you might hear Mrs. Burke demonstrate. Okay, and we're not going to consider the guitar. The guitar, of course, is an awesome instrument, but it's just not part of the orchestra. So what other instruments are part of the orchestra? Okay, raise your hand if you said, or if you were thinking of violin. All right, raise your hand if you were thinking of the viola. Yeah, the viola is one that we don't hear quite as much of, but we're going to certainly see that today with Mrs. Burke. Raise your hand if you were thinking of the cello. Yeah, we're going to see today live and in person the cello. So without further ado, here we go. We're going to start out with some singing, and then we'll listen to Mrs. Burke and go over the instruments of the orchestra.
Every one of you is going to get to try the instruments in person to see what you like and what you might want to sign up for next year. Every third grader is going to get to try the instruments. You don't have to sign up for one, but every third grader tries them because you never know. You might end up liking one. So before we do the process of having you try the instruments, you have to meet all the instruments so you know what they are and you kind of start to think in your brain, oh, I like how that one sounded, or I didn't like how that one sounded, so you know what you will want to try. So today, I'm going to show you with my 5th grade helpers who I brought the string family. The string family is in the orchestra. I'm going to show you 3 different ones today. There's actually 4 different string instruments that you can play, but one of them you have to wait until you're about halfway through 4th grade to switch to, and I'll tell you that a little later. But we're going to start with the smallest one. So raise your hand if you know the name of the smallest string instrument. Okay, we've got a lot of hands, so say it if you know it. The violin. The violin is the smallest. Because it's the smallest, it probably sounds the highest. You got it. So there's some things that all of the string instruments have in common. They all have 4 strings, 2, 3, 4, and they all have a similar body shape, except that they are different sizes, right? Violin and viola we hold under our chin to play. That's something those 2 instruments have in common. Oh, but cello, we sit and play. All right. When we first learned to play a string instrument, we learned by playing pizzicato. Pizzicato means, 5th graders, you want to answer this question? Pizzicato means plucking with your fingers, right? Yeah, I'll retune it. No problem. Okay, so a little example of a song played pizzicato. How about Twinkle Twinkle? Now, after you've learned a song, plucking, and we spend a few months on that, we get to add in the bow. Here's the bow. The bow is made of a few different things. It's made of horsehair. Now, if you have a really expensive professional level bow, you probably have real horsehair. But if you have a student bow or a rental bow, you have fake horsehair. And I will say, no horses are hurt in the process. So if you have real horsehair, they just give the horse's tail a little trim, and then they dye it and bleach it and clean it and all of that stuff, so it's nice and clean looking. So then it's made of horsehair, and the stick part can be made of either plastic or carbon fiber or wood. There's various different materials. You have a little grippy part right here that some people have a little metal wire, some people have rubber here, and we have a screw at the end made of metal, and this is where we hold our hand position at the end, the frog. All right, so same song with the bow. Let's see how it sounds different, but the same. Resonates a little bit more? Yes, ma'am. It's what? Smoother. Yep, you got it. Now, because violin is the highest instrument, if you're a person that likes high pitches, high notes, you can make some pretty high notes on this instrument. I'm going to show you what they sound like. Some of you, I could see some of your faces looked like you liked those notes, and some of you were like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. You can make even higher than that. I'm going to go one position higher. I'm going to go one position higher. So if you're a person that really likes high notes, this might be the instrument for you. Now, if you're a person that thinks, well, I really like the idea of a string instrument, but I don't know about the high notes, then let's talk about viola for a minute. It looks very similar, right? But it obviously looks bigger. Bigger, yeah, bigger. Okay, Rohan has a viola too. Hold yours up. Yep, bigger, right? So because it's bigger, it's going to sound a little bit lower, right? This is the middle instrument of the orchestra, medium tones. It has 3 of the same strings, but instead of that really high string that I just showed you, it has a low string instead. Has a low C string, which sounds like this. again, you can play all the same songs. Everyone learns the same tunes on all string instruments, no matter which one you play. Everyone learns Twinkle Twinkle. Everyone learns Mary Had a Little Lamb. Everyone learns Hot Cross Buns. And again, you would start with pizzicato, right? This is Mary. And then you learn the bow shortly after that when you get good at that. So viola is, I will say, my favorite only because I started on viola when I was in 4th grade. So when I got to pick an instrument, this is the one that I picked and have played forever. So to me, I'm just like a middle tone person. I like the mellow sounds. So that's an idea of an instrument with a medium tone. And last, 2 of my helpers I brought with me have with them cellos. So we're going to talk about cello, and then I'm going to let my helpers play a little song all together. So cello is the biggest and lowest that you can play. Here's my sneaky cello over here. You have to sit in a chair to play it. You can't put it under your chin. Oh, it would be a disaster. Yep. So this is actually, one thing I forgot to say, is that string instruments come in what's called fractional sizes, which means you can get a size that matches up to you. So if you were thinking of looking at viola and thinking, I kind of like that, but it looks maybe too big, my arms aren't that long. If you sign up for a string instrument, we measure your arm length and your height to get you the correct size that matches up to you. So you could get a smaller viola that you are able to hold up better, and you can get small or big cellos. So this is a quarter or a half size cello. So this is like a baby cello. It still looks pretty big, but it's a baby cello. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I think I'm too short to play the cello or anything like that. Anybody can play it because you get the size that matches to you. But I do have to make this one a little bit taller. Every cello player has to put their end pin out, which is down here at the bottom. We put that out first. And then we can hold with our knees so it doesn't slide away. I don't know if it's still in tune, probably not. Okay, so 4 strings. Fun fact, the cello has the same 4 strings as the viola does. But it's gonna sound what?
Lower.
Lower, yeah. So it still has A, D, G, C. Does not have high E like violin does. But listen to, remember the low notes on viola? They were pretty low, but listen to the lowest note on cello. Sounds almost like a foghorn or a ship, right? You can get some higher notes too, though. And the lowest string is the thickest string. You can probably see that from where you are. That the thicker the string, the lower the sound. So if you're a person that likes low sounds, cello is a great choice, and you can get one that's a good size for you that you can carry. The other instrument that you can play is the bass, which is the really tall one. It looks like a giant cello, and you have to stand up to play it. But that's the one that you can't play until about halfway through 4th grade. So if you're interested in playing a really big bass, I ask that you start on either cello, violin, or viola and learn your string note foundations. Then I let people try out the bass and see who might want to switch to it, who would be a good player. So we're gonna let our 3 guests play little hot cross buns for you. So why don't just D was a little. Okay, so we're gonna do a little performance of hot cross buns, and this is how, as 4th grade, I'm gonna go to the piano, but you guys still face that way. 4th grade, this is called our little hot cross buns rotation. We learn to play it on every string. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start on the D string. All right, ready, helpers? D string first. Ready, go. Ready, the A string.
you can hear after only a couple years of work and practice that those fifth graders sounded pretty good on their performance there. All right, without making a sound, I need for you to stand up. Raise your hand if so far you liked the violin the best. Okay, hands down. Raise your hand if you like the viola. All right, hands down. And lastly, raise your hand if you like the cello. Remember, cello is the kind of the big one, right? That you're gonna have to get on the school bus and that you have to sit down to play. All right, and hands down. And please have a seat. All right, at this point, we'll have Mr. Hans join us, and he's going to go over all the instruments of the band. So these are instruments that we need to blow into. So let's review a few instruments that we might hear, okay? So think of a band instrument without making a sound. I need for you to think of a wind instrument that you need to blow into that you're likely going to hear about right now with Mr. Hans. Okay, raise your hand if you said flute. All right, raise your hand if you said clarinet. Okay, how about saxophone? Okay, and let's see where we're here. Oh yes, how about the trumpet? All right, and how about trombone? All right, so once we get done Mr. Hans' part of the video, let's come back to this list and see if we missed any instruments that Mr. Hans went over. Mr. Hans also has a student group who will be performing for you, okay? So I'll see you in a few minutes after Mr. Hans' presentation.
Mr. Hans, like Han Solo or Hans from Frozen. That's the only two I got. If you can think of the third one, let me know. But does anyone know at least one of those people? Okay, cool. All right. So, like Mrs. Burke, Mrs. Burke obviously does the orchestra. I do the band here at GVE. Does anyone know where my room is? Right back there, right? How many of you have been in this room and you hear some weird, crazy noises going? Yep, that's us. That's me. That's our wonderful fourth grade clarinet players over here. So hopefully you, too, next year, will be the ones making some crazy noises in that room. And the new third graders are going to be like, what's going on? But it'll be fun. So, there are a bunch of band instruments. So I'm going to do my best to get through them all, right? If you have any questions, try your best to save them. Remember them so you can save them for the end so I can answer them after everything, okay? Cool? Yeah. We're going to start with this instrument. Does anyone know what this is called? Raise your hand. Flute. Now, on top of the flute is what? A flute hat, right? Or a beanie, if you will. Now, flutes get cold. They need a flute hat to stay warm, right? If you choose flute, you automatically get to pick your own flute hat. If you don't choose flute, there's still lots of chances to get a flute hat. I have a basketball net in my room. After each lesson, you get 3 to 5 basketball free throws. And if you make one, you get to choose a prize. There's usually like 100 or so hats in the prize box to choose from. So everyone can get a flute hat. You can kind of put it on. I think you guys have put on your clarinets a few times. You know, there are other opportunities other than just for the flute. So, do we think the flute's going to be high or low sounding? High, right? So flute has a lot of cool melodies. It almost always has the part that you would sing along to in a song, which is really cool. All right. So this is flute. Looks like there's a lot of buttons, right? Yeah. But that's not too bad. It's really just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And we use our pinky a little bit too. So it's not too bad. It's a lot less complicated than it actually looks. All right. What other instrument do you play in this classroom that uses the same 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3? Recorder, right? Very, very similar. Okay. So my next instrument is going to be right over here. If you all could stand up and walk to the front of the room, please. It is the clarinet. Now, what character plays the clarinet? What animated character? Yes.
I forget his name.
Okay. Yeah.
Squidward.
Squidward. Now, is Squidward good at the clarinet?
No.
Not really. Not really, right? Now, I guarantee if you choose clarinet in 4th grade, you will be better than Squidward pretty quickly.
Or we can become Squidward.
You could become that too. I haven't thought about that one. So, clarinet also looks like it has a ton of buttons, doesn't it?
Yes.
Guess what? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. A lot less. It has some piggy buttons, but it's a lot less complicated than it looks, right? Now, you are all 4th grade clarinet players, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it really fun?
Yeah.
Now, can you play, let's play a song. Let's play Mary Had a Little Lamb. Alright? Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. There we go. Everyone clap it up. Woo! Thank you. You guys can go sit back on now. Thank you. So that's clarinet. It's really, really cool. Raise your hand if you recognize this song. Yeah, right? So, this is clarinet. It's super fun. It's just a really good time in general. The next one I'm going to play, well, kind of similar to the clarinet. Yes, it is the saxophone. Right? The saxophone. So, this is cool because it has a neck strap. So you just hook that in there, and your hand's free. Right? Now, looks like a lot of buttons, doesn't it? Kind of it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just like what instruments? Clarinet, flute, and recorder, right? Exactly. So, saxophone is really cool. It's a really popular jazz instrument, but it's really fun to play in band. It sounds like this. So now. Anyone heard that before? Like a football game, a basketball game, right? So, this is the saxophone. Okay. Let's see what else we got over here. We're gonna get this in a second. Now, as a teacher, I know I shouldn't really have favorites, right? But this is my favorite. This is called the French horn. Some of you guessed it, all right? Really swirly, has a really cool big bell. You can kind of see yourself in it sometimes, right? It's really, really fun. This is my main instrument. I played this instrument starting in 2nd grade, and I still play it. How many people went to did anyone here go to the high school musical, Brigadoon? Yeah? So I was playing French horn in Pitt, playing for that musical. So my favorite instrument, it's really cool. It can play really high, it can play really low. It kind of mixes it all together, right? That's a French horn. It's my favorite instrument. If you're on the fence about what instrument to play, I always recommend the French horn. Cool? Here's a super popular one. Trumpet, classic instrument. I wonder if you guys know this song. you're thinking, Mr. Hans, I know you're playing all these cool, fun songs right now. But like, will we ever get to play those cool, fun songs in band? No, I have some 5th graders walking in here. 5th grade flutes. Are we playing It's Raining Tacos in band right now?
Yes.
Yes, we are. So, you do get to play these fun songs like Raining Tacos, Mamma Mia, How to Train Your Dragon, songs from The Greatest Showman, all that cool stuff we get to do in band, okay? So, I just have a few more instruments to go. This is the trombone. Some of you already said it. Are there buttons on here?
No.
No, how do you think you play it? With the slide, right? So you play any note with your slide. It's pretty cool. Next instrument, very similar to trombone. It's like a trombone, but it just looks different. Does this have a slide? Does this have valves?
No.
Yes, it does, right? So, this is called what? The baritone. It's like a tuba. How many of you have heard of a tuba? Yeah, so the tuba's really big, right? This is like a mini tuba. So you get to play this in 4th grade, and then the tuba, you get to play in 5th grade. Alright? So, do we think this is going to be really low or really high?
Low.
Low, right? It actually can do both. It's kind of a trick question, right? So it can kind of do both ranges. Ready? Raise your hand if you recognize this song. What is it? Star Wars, right? Yeah. So this is baritone. I really like this instrument. It's super fun to play, and it's really, really, really pretty. Okay? I have one more instrument for you all. One more instrument. I'll be very impressed if anyone guesses this instrument correctly. Be very, very impressed. Not or not. It looks like it. Oboe. Is that oboe? This is the oboe. Now, looks like a lot of buttons, doesn't it? Guess what? About to blow your mind. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You do use your pinkies a little bit, but it's not that complicated. Alright? Now, the oboe is a really cool instrument because it sounds so different than any other instrument in band. It's kind of in its own thing. Ready? Doesn't that sound cool?
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. So, those are all the band instruments that you can choose from. Okay? There's also percussion, which I'm not going to demonstrate, but I believe Mr. Lennerman will demonstrate at a later time. And that's it. I think there's 9 total. So, what I need you all to do, your homework, is to start to think about what instruments you want to try out during your instrument interview that's coming up in a couple of weeks, okay? You get to pick 3 instruments out of all the band instruments and all the string and orchestra instruments. You get to pick 3 to try out, and then we kind of we see which one you do best at, which one you match up with. You know what I mean? So, your homework is to think about which 3 you want to do. Again, I suggest the French horn. I suggest the oboe. That's just kind of me. I suggest the flute. They're really fun. Yeah. All right. So, if you can think of any more questions at a later time, I'm sure Mr. Lennerman will be able to answer them. Or you can also stop by my room, which is where again? Right there. Right there.
Please.
Pop in, ask away. And if not, I will see you all at your 3rd grade instrument interviews coming up. All right. So think about your 3 instruments you want to pick. Okay. Cool? Thank you all very much.
Okay, clearly you saw a few more instruments than we have up here. Raise your hand if you can think of one instrument that I forgot to put up here. Don't call out. One instrument that I forgot to put up here. All right. I forgot to put up the French horn, and I think that Mr. Hans was saying that was his favorite instrument, because why? Because that's the one he plays, right? Okay, what's another one that I forgot to put up here? If you're thinking baritone horn. Okay, the baritone horn, that was the big one, right? That was the big one. I think he may have mentioned that was kind of like a small tuba. All right. Tuba is one that we didn't see at all here, but the baritone is very close to the tuba. And then there's one more at the very end. What was it called? It was the oboe. Yeah, and that's the instrument that had quite a unique sound to it, so the oboe. All right, so we went over, in that part of our video, we went over the woodwind family. So woodwind instruments are your flute, clarinet, saxophone, and your oboe is a double reed instrument. Remember, he said it has 2 reeds there. And then your brass instruments that you saw today were the trumpet, trombone, French horn, and the baritone. Okay, brass instruments, meaning that they're made out of brass. Brass is a metal. Yes, the saxophone is made out of brass, but because of the mouthpiece makes it, in other words, a woodwind instrument. We'll talk more about that in class periods later on, where I'll demonstrate and show a little bit more detail on each one of these instruments. Okay, so that is it. Let's do one more thing before you get on to your instrument bingo. Okay, stand up. Stretch up and down and take 3 steps up. Reach out, turn and turn once more. Stretch up and down and take 3 steps around. Reach out, turn and turn once more. Okay, so with the time remaining, you may get the instrument card. When your teacher gets organized, you may get the instrument bingo cards out. There will be chips between every 2 people. And we'll start at a level that I have set out for you, and your teacher will see what CD track to start on, okay? Thank you. Have a great day. We'll talk more about this the next time I see you, and I expect a very good report about this class, all right? See you next week, guys.